5 signs you're experiencing a spiritual awakening and how to accelerate it. Opening what? If I told you that what you're calling a spiritual awakening is actually a documented neurological event, not a mystical experience reserved for monks and gurus, a measurable shift in brain function that happens to thousands of people every year, often without them understanding what's occurring, this isn't New Age fluff or wishful thinking. This is hard neuroscience. Researchers at institutions like Johns Hopkins and Imperial College London have mapped the neural correlates of what spiritual traditions have called awakening for millennia. They've discovered something extraordinary. These experiences involve specific changes in brain connectivity, particularly in your default mode network, the neural system responsible for your sense of separate self. Here's what matters. These changes aren't random. They follow predictable patterns. And once you recognize the signs, you can accelerate the process using targeted interventions that exploit your brain's neuroplastic capacity. I'm about to reveal 5 unmistakable signs that your consciousness is undergoing a fundamental reorganization, plus 10 specific protocols to deepen and stabilize the transformation. These aren't affirmations or visualizations. These are neurological tools that work with your brain's natural mechanisms. If you've been feeling different lately and moored, expanded, confused, or weirdly alive, pay attention. Your neurobiology is trying to tell you something important. BODY the 10 Techniques. Part 1. Identity Dissolution Recognition Protocol. Most people think they know who they are. They have a consistent story about their personality, preferences, history, and future trajectory. This narrative feels solid, unchangeable, fundamental. Here's what neuroscience reveals. That sense of fixed identity is generated by your default mode network of brain system. That becomes less active during meditation, psychedelic experiences, and spontaneous awakening states. When this network quiets, your sense of being a separate, continuous self becomes fluid. This is technique number 1 out of 10, the Identity Dissolution Recognition Protocol. Here's your practice every morning for 7 days. Spend 3 minutes asking yourself, who am I? Without answering with social roles, memories, or personality traits. Don't try to find an answer. Sit with the question itself. Notice the discomfort, the urge to grasp for familiar labels, the strange spaciousness that emerges when you don't immediately fill the void with concepts. The mechanism is profound. You're intentionally interrupting the automatic self-referential processing that your medial prefrontal cortex generates constantly. When you stop reinforcing the narrative of me, the neural networks that construct that story begin to reorganize. Your brain starts operating from presence rather than identity. Start questioning your assumed self-concept daily and watch the rigid boundaries of who you think you are become permeable, flexible, and ultimately transparent. Part 2. Synchronicity Amplification Method. You're in awakening. You'll notice impossible coincidences multiplying. You think of someone, they text. You need information, it appears. You follow an impulse, it leads somewhere meaningful. Most people dismiss these as random chance. Neuroscientists studying pattern recognition have uncovered something remarkable. Your reticular activating system, your brain's attention filter, changes its parameters. During consciousness shifts, you begin noticing connections that were always there, but previously filtered out as irrelevant noise. This is technique number 2 out of 10. The Synchronicity Amplification Method. Execute this protocol for 14 days. Keep a synchronicity journal. Every evening, write down 3 meaningful coincidences, unexpected connections, or moments when external events mirrored internal states. Be specific. Note times, context, and your emotional state. Don't analyze or interpret. Simply document the data. Why this works? You're training your attention to notice nonlinear connections. Your brain's pattern-matching circuits become sensitized to meaningful relationships between seemingly unrelated events. More importantly, you're building evidence that reality operates through more dimensions than your rational mind typically acknowledges. Start tracking synchronicities systematically, and watch your relationship with causality transform from linear to multidimensional. Part 3. Sensory Intensification Integration Technique. Rewiring often brings overwhelming sensory amplification. Colors become almost unbearably vivid. Music moves through you like electricity. Touch sensations penetrate deeper. Your nervous system is processing data it previously filtered out. Research on sensory gating your brain's ability to filter repetitive stimuli shows that meditation and consciousness practices reduce this filtering. Your thalamus literally opens its gates, allowing more raw sensory information through the conscious awareness. This is technique number 3 out of 10, the sensory intensification integration technique. Your intervention is this: choose 1 sense per day for 5 consecutive days. On day 1, dedicate 6 microsessions of 90 seconds each to sight really seeing textures, light, shadow, color gradients. Day 2, sound. Day 3, touch. Day 4, taste. Day 5, smell. During each session, bring forensic attention to that single sensory channel as if you're experiencing it. For the first time, the neuroscience is elegant. You're deliberately strengthening the neural pathways between your sensory cortices and your prefrontal attention networks. You're also increasing myelination in these pathways, which makes sensory processing faster and more detailed. You're upgrading your perceptual hardware. Start cycling through sensory-focused days and watch overwhelming intensification transform into exquisite clarity and presence. Part 4. Existential disorientation. Stabilization system. During awakening, you may experience profound confusion about what's real, what matters, or what you're supposed to do with your life. Old motivations evaporate. Previous goals feel hollow. This isn't depression, it's disorientation. Psychologists studying meaning-making have identified this as meaning dissolution, a necessary phase where outdated frameworks collapse before new ones crystallize. Your brain is literally reorganizing its value hierarchies in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. This is technique number 4 out of 10, the existential disorientation stabilization system. Here's your practice for 21 days. Complete this 5-minute evening protocol. Write down 3 things you're certain are true, 3 things you're uncertain about, and 3 questions you're sitting with. Don't force resolution. Create space for not knowing. Notice which certainties start dissolving and which uncertainties become comfortable. Why this works. You're training your anterior cingulate cortex, your brain's conflict monitoring system, to tolerate ambiguity without triggering anxiety responses. You're also building new neural pathways that associate uncertainty with curiosity, rather than threat. You're rewiring how your brain processes the unknown. Start documenting your evolving relationship with certainty, and watch existential confusion transform into radical openness. Part 5. Emotional intensity regulation. Protocol awakening cranks up emotional volume. You might cry at commercials, feel overwhelming compassion for strangers, or experience waves of causeless joy followed by unexplainable grief. Your emotional body is recalibrating. Neuroscientists studying emotional processing have discovered that meditation and consciousness practices increase activity in your brain's emotion processing hub while simultaneously strengthening connections to your prefrontal cortex. You feel more intensely, but with greater capacity to observe without being swept away. This is technique number 5 out of 10, the emotional intensity regulation protocol. Execute this sequence when intense emotions arise. Implement this 4-step process within 60 seconds. First, name the emotion with precision. Second, locate it in your body. Third, breathe into that location for 5 full breaths. Fourth, ask, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Listen without judging or fixing. The mechanism involves your ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, which activates during emotion labeling and has inhibitory connections to your amygdala. You're not suppressing emotion, you're creating a conscious relationship with it. Your limbic system learns it can discharge intensity without hijacking your entire system. Start relating to emotions as information rather than emergencies and watch overwhelming intensity become navigable energy. Part 6. Time perception dissolution. Exorcising awakening. Linear time starts feeling artificial. You might lose hours in what feels like minutes, or experience eternal spaciousness in a brief moment. Past and future feel less solid, less real than the immediate now. Research on temporal perception reveals something fascinating. Your sense of time is constructed by your hippocampus and prefrontal cortex working together to organize experience into sequential narratives. When these systems quiet, which they do during awakening states, time perception becomes nonlinear. This is technique number 6 out of 10, the time perception dissolution exercise. Your protocol is beautifully simple. For times daily for 2 minutes. Practice what researchers call temporal decentering. Set a timer. Close your eyes and release all orientation to past or future. Don't reminisce. Don't plan. Experience the present moment as if it has no connection to any other moment. As if this is the only moment that has ever existed or ever will exist. The neuroscience. You're interrupting your hippocampus's automatic function, contextualizing present experience within temporal narratives. You're also reducing activation in your posterior cingulate cortex, which is heavily involved in temporal self-projection. You're dismantling the psychological machinery that creates the illusion of linear time. Start practicing temporal decentering and watch clock. Time loses tyranny while eternal presence becomes your natural state. Part 7. Social identity. Disruption management method awakening often creates friction in relationships. People you resonated with feel incompatible. Conversations that once engaged you now feel superficial. You're not becoming antisocial, you're recalibrating what authentic connection means. Social neuroscience has revealed that your sense of self is largely constructed through social mirroring. Your brain literally incorporates others' perceptions of you into your self-concept. During awakening, these borrowed identities start falling away, which can feel destabilizing. This is technique number 7 out of 10. The social identity disruption management method. Here's your intervention for the next 10 days. After every significant social interaction, spend 3 minutes journaling on these questions. Which parts of that interaction felt authentic to who I'm becoming? Which parts felt like performance of who I used to be? What did I suppress or exaggerate? Be ruthlessly honest. This leverages your brain's reconsolidation mechanisms. Every time you recall a social interaction, the memory becomes temporarily malleable. By reflecting with awareness, you're updating your social programming in real time. You're also strengthening your ventromedial prefrontal cortex's ability to maintain authentic self-representation, even under social pressure. Start auditing your social authenticity daily and watch superficial connections naturally dissolve while genuine intimacy deepens. Part 8. Energetic sensitivity grounding. Technique. During awakening, you become energetically porous. You walk into a room and immediately feel everyone's emotional states. You absorb moods, tensions, and unspoken dynamics. This isn't imagination, it's increased mirror neuron activity and heightened interoception. Neuroscientists studying empathy have found that people in awakening states show enhanced activation in their anterior insula and anterior cingulate cortex regions, involved in sensing others' internal states. You're literally feeling more of what others feel. This is technique number 8 out of 10. The energetic sensitivity grounding technique. Execute this practice before entering any social space. Take 45 seconds to establish an energetic baseline. Place one hand on your heart, one on your belly. Take 3 deep breaths while internally noting your current emotional state with precision. After the interaction, repeat this process and notice what's yours versus what you absorb from others. The mechanism is practical. You're training your brain to differentiate between internally generated emotions and empathically absorbed ones. This involves strengthening connections between your interoceptive cortex and your meta-awareness networks. You're building better boundaries at a neurological level. Start booking in social interactions with energetic check-ins and watch absorptive overwhelm transform into conscious empathy. Part 9. Purpose dissolution integration system. One of the most disorienting awakening signs is the collapse of previous life purpose. Career goals that drove you for years suddenly feel meaningless. Ambitions that defined you evaporate. This isn't failure, it's ego death of your achievement-based identity. Researchers studying motivation have identified that purpose operates at multiple levels in your brain, from basic reward circuitry to abstract meaning-making in your frontal cortex. During awakening, the dopamine-driven achievement motivation gets replaced by something deeper, what neuroscientists call intrinsic motivation, sourced from authentic alignment rather than external validation. This is technique number 9 out of 10. The purpose dissolution integration system. Your practice is this. For 30 days, dedicate 7 minutes each morning to free writing on the prompt, if nothing I achieved mattered, what would I do today? Don't censor. Don't make it noble or spiritual. Let whatever emerges come through without judgment. Notice themes that recur across the month. Why this works: you're bypassing your prefrontal cortex's socially conditioned goals and accessing deeper motivational circuits in your ventral striatum. You're also building new neural associations between action and intrinsic satisfaction, rather than external outcomes. Your brain is discovering what it actually wants versus what it was programmed to want. Start excavating authentic purpose daily and watch manufactured ambition give way to effortless alignment. Part 10. Reality questioning expansion protocol during awakening. Certainty about the nature of reality begins crumbling. You start questioning fundamental assumptions. What is consciousness? What is matter? Is separation real? These aren't intellectual exercises, they're direct challenges to your brain's operating system. Cognitive scientists studying belief formation have discovered that your sense of what's real is maintained by your brain's predictive processing, constantly generating models of reality and updating them based on sensory input. During awakening, prediction errors multiply as your direct experience contradicts your models. This is technique number 10 out of 10, the reality questioning expansion protocol. Execute this protocol once weekly for 8 weeks. Spend 15 minutes contemplating one fundamental question without trying to answer it. Week 1, what is aware of my thoughts? Week 2, where do thoughts come from? Week 3, what is the space in which experience occurs? Continue rotating through increasingly fundamental questions, sitting with not knowing. The neuroscience is profound. You're training your brain to tolerate massive uncertainty. In your most basic assumptions, you're reducing the automatic defensiveness your amygdala generates when core beliefs are challenged. You're also activating your right hemisphere's holistic, nonlinear processing capacities. You're literally expanding what your brain considers possible. Start systematically questioning realities, foundations, and watch your entire perceptual framework reorganize around direct experience rather than inherited beliefs. Closing these 10 protocols aren't separate interventions, they're an integrated system for recognizing, accelerating, and stabilizing the neurological transformation called spiritual awakening. Each addresses a specific challenge that arises when your brain reorganizes around expanded consciousness. Identity dissolution, synchronicity sensitivity, sensory amplification, existential disorientation, emotional intensity, temporal fluidity, social recalibration, energetic porosity, purpose reformation, reality questioning. Together, they provide a roadmap through territory that can feel chaotic and overwhelming without guidance. Science has finally caught up to what mystics have known for thousands of years. Awakening isn't supernatural. It's supernormal, a natural capacity of human neurobiology that most people never activate. Your brain is designed to transcend its default operating system. These protocols simply give it permission and direction. Your transformation doesn't start tomorrow or next week. It starts the moment you recognize that what you've been experiencing isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. The moment you stop pathologizing your expansion and start working with it intentionally. The old version of you is dissolving because it's too small to contain what you're becoming. The confusion, the intensity, the strange new perceptual abilities, these aren't problems to fix. They're features of an upgrade in progress. Implement these protocols with consistency and precision. Document what shifts. Trust the process even when it feels destabilizing. Your brain knows what it's doing. Awakening has its own intelligence. The version of you that operates from presence rather than personality, from being rather than becoming, from wholeness rather than seeking that future self is waiting. Not someday. Now. The only question is whether you'll meet them.